Hey guys, Rich from Rich Big Gaming. Hope everyone is doing fantastically well. Welcome to this episode 8 of our Star Wars Shatterpoint Beginner's Guide, where we take every single aspect of the Shatterpoint core rulesbook and we're putting them in a video format to hopefully make it that little bit easier for you guys to learn all these rules ready for the release of the game in early June. And once again, very much looking forward to getting my hands on that one. This video is, I promise, the final video before we go into making attacks. In this video, we're going to break down the stance card. And we're also lumping in conditions in there as well, because it kind of falls into the combat tree side of it. So as I was building the video, it just made sense to include this as part of it. A quick reminder that we are going to be doing our giveaway of our Star Wars Shatterpoint core box tomorrow. That means today is your last chance to make sure that you have done all the things you need to do to be with a chance to win that Star Wars Shatterpoint core box. So hang around till the end of the video and I will give you all the details that you need at the end to make sure that you're in with a chance to win that Star Wars Shatterpoint core box, again, irrespective of where you are in the world. So let's jump over then and let's take a look at stance cards. Now, stance cards are a very, very important part of Star Wars Shatterpoint. Every single character or every single unit in the game, comes with a stance card. So let's have a quick look then at an overview of a stance card and the different components that make it up. So we've got Captain Rex's card here. So the first thing you'll notice is at the bottom of the card are the details of whose stance card this is. So CC7567 Captain Rex. It's also worth noting that at least for now, what we've been told is that stance cards are not going to be interchangeable. So even if you have a character with the same name, Ahsoka Tano is a good example, the Jedi No More stance card is going to be completely different to Padawan Ahsoka Tano, and they won't be interchangeable. And you can see there at the top right hand side, we've also got a name of the stance card, which is Tactical Supremacy, and that comes into play when we talk about primary characters, but we'll get onto that in a little moment. So stance card then, it's broken down into multiple parts. So the first part is going to be our ranged stats. And we can see there that we've got the little ranged attack symbol. And then underneath, we've got the actual range that this unit can make a range attack from. So Rex can make a range 5 attack, the longest range in the game, or at least that we've got so far. Who knows, there may be longer, but I very much doubt it. And then on the other side, we have the melee attack types, and then we've got the actual number of die that the character will be rolling for both attacks and for defense. Now, some characters may not have a ranged attack. Every single character in the game has a melee attack. I keep saying characters, I mean units, of course. So every single unit has a melee attack, but not all units will have access to a ranged attack. So worth pointing out, but obviously everyone gets defenses from both sides. Then to the bottom of the card, we've got various expertise trees. So first of all, for Rex, he's got his DC-17 blaster pistols, and this is going to be his ranged expertise. We've then got, again, the DC-17 blaster pistols for his melee expertise. I assume he's just hitting them over the head with them. And then lastly, we've got the defensive expertise, which in this one is going to be Phase 2 clone armor. We're not going to do a deep dive into expertise in this particular video. As I mentioned, this is a prelude to the attack video, where we'll go through a full example of how you make and resolve a full attack. But there's just some information here that I wanted to, again, separate out into a separate video. Otherwise, that attack video would have been far, far too long. And then lastly, and I suppose probably more importantly, is the actual combat tree itself. You know, it's the combat tree. If you look at different cards, they'll have multiple paths and things like that on them. We'll explain in this video how we go through each of those. But you'll also see there's some icons on there that we need to resolve. So let's jump over and take a look at the first set of icons, which are going to be the personal effect icons. Now, some of these you're already going to be familiar with because we've already seen them in other videos. So first of all, we've got advance. We've then got a climb. We've got a dash. We've got a jump. And then we have a reposition. Now, if you remember, if you haven't looked at it, go back and look at the movement video that I did. We go into detail around what each of these ones can do. The big thing to remember is that whether or not, or irrespective of whether these are coming off your combat tree or not, the same rules will apply. So, for example, if your combat tree tells you can make an advance, and you are actually engaged with an enemy, you're not going to be able to use that advance. Things like a dash or a jump or a reposition are going to be the only ones that you can use. So just make sure that you're eligible to be able to use those different abilities. Next up then, we have the heal. Now this is going to work in exactly the same way as recover. So the affected character may remove one condition or one damage from its unit, or another allied unit within range 2. And then lastly is going to be the active ability. So an active ability, this is a little bit wordier, but if it is this unit's activation, so that's important, it's only going to work on their activation. So there are some characters that get a retaliation attack. If they have that retaliation attack and an active ability trigger in their combat tree, they're not going to be able to use it. It may use one of its active abilities without paying the force cost. So it's getting that active ability for free as long as it is that unit activation. It will happen after all other directed effects have been resolved, and then the damage pool has been applied. So it's kind of the last thing that happens during the actual combat phase. However, remember, a unit can only use one of each active ability once per turn. So it doesn't override that ability. So if you've already done a force jump with Anakin, for example, you're not going to be able to use another force jump. Or more importantly, if you've used an attack on him, so the actual ability that gives you an extra attack, you won't be able to do that again. I don't think Anakin's got one of these in his combat tree, so that's not too much of a problem. But it doesn't, it does mean that you cannot use that same active ability twice. It just means that you get to use it once without paying the force cost. So let's take a look then at directed effect icons. So these are things that we're going to be doing to our opponent. So the first one is going to be damage. So this is the symbol for damage. So the affected unit suffers 1 damage. Now this can come from the combat tree itself, or if you take a look at some of those expertise charts, you may see some damage on there as well. But irrespective, it's always going to be a single damage. We then have shove. Now, we did talk about shove very briefly. In fact, we did actually do a full example of this during our movement. Just a quick reminder, so the affected unit may be pushed away range 1, then the attacking character may pull itself range 1 towards the target. So that last part is optional. In fact, the first part is optional as well. You don't have to resolve it should you not wish to, but you can push them and then you can pull yourself towards them. So when I've played some games with Quinn, shoves have been so important in this game of by pushing people off points and moving yourselves onto them. So I think they're going to be very, very powerful. So next up then is strained. When a character advances, climbs, dashes, jumps, makes an action, or uses an active or reactive ability, it suffers 3 damage. Now I really, really like this one, especially because it affects reactive abilities. I love the idea of putting this onto a character like an Ahsoka Tano or anybody else who's got reactive abilities when it comes to making a melee or indeed a ranged attack against them, really putting the question back onto them: how important is it that they use that ability to either deflect or do damage back to you, but they're going to suffer an extra 3 damage for it. Now it's important to note that strain happens at the end of the whatever it is that you're doing after all of the effects have been resolved. So for example, if you are using a recover action, once your recover action is over, if you choose to remove that strain token, then it's no longer there. So therefore the damage isn't going to kick in. And I also believe that if you choose to make an attack action and you have some healing capabilities along your combat tree or even on your attack expertise, then you're going to have the opportunity to be able to remove that strain before it kicks in at the end of the attack or whatever it is that you're doing. But even with that, I think it's going to be a really, really good ability and really, as I mentioned, put that question on your opponent as to whether or not they want to do the things that they want to do. We then have disarmed. So disarmed is going to be while attacking, characters in this unit cannot use attack expertise. Now, when we get into making attacks in the next video, you'll see how important that expertise is. It's really, really going to hamper a character when they are making an attack. And then lastly, we have exposed, which a little bit like disarmed, but really it is exposing that character. So while they're defending, characters in this unit cannot use defense expertise. So they're going to be, actually, sorry, I was going to say they're going to be all of them, but that's not the case at all. Lastly, sorry, we do then have pinned. So the next time a character in this unit makes an advance, dashes, climbs, or jumps, it simply does not. Let's then take a quick look at some of these, because we do have the last four of those, so strained, disarmed, exposed, and pinned, as well as being directed effect icons, they're also counted as condition tokens. So as we already sort of discussed, we've got strained, we've got pinned, we've got exposed, and we have got disarmed. So let's just quickly take a look at how conditions work and what we can do with them. So conditions will affect all characters in a unit. So if you have a support unit with multiple characters, who knows, we may have primaries and secondaries with multiple characters further down the line, it's going to affect all characters in that unit. Once the effect of the condition has been applied, the condition token is removed from the unit. So for example, once you've taken the 3 damage from strain, for example, that condition is then removed and you no longer have that condition. Units can have multiple conditions, but a maximum of 1 of each type. So if you've already put a strain token on one character, you can't then add a second strain token on. However, a rule that I really, really do like is that if a unit would gain a condition it already has, it suffers 1 damage instead. So when you're working along that combat tree, if you are able to dish out a condition and they already have it, you're not wasting that. You are able to convert that extra condition into a damage that you can put on them. So a unit can remove a special condition using the heal ability. They can do this either via a recover action, as we mentioned earlier. Now that recover action could be one that they use themselves, or it could be another character within range 2 that makes that recover action. Or they can do this through expertise. Characters have both heals on their attack expertise and their defense expertise, or via their combat tree if they are making an attack. And then lastly, units may be immune to certain conditions. If they are, it will be clearly stated on their character stat card. So they cannot gain that condition. If you are immune to pin, you cannot gain pinned. Also, your opponent wouldn't be able to turn that pinned into an extra damage in its place. You're immune to it, you can't take it, your opponent doesn't gain any benefit from that. So let's talk about double-sided stance cards for a minute or two. Now, most units in this game are only going to have a single-sided stance card. However, every single primary in the unit, and I think they've confirmed every primary unit moving forward, will have a double-sided stance card, giving them even more options. And who knows, in the future, other characters may have double-sided cards as well. So if we take a look at Asajj here, she's got her first side, which is going to be her Jarkai, and then her second side is going to be Form 2 Makashi. Now, All primary characters have a double-sided stance card. AMG have already made that perfectly clear. And a unit chooses which side of the stance card it starts on during the deployment phase. So once you've deployed your characters, you can then choose which side you want to choose. I believe starting with the first player and then moving over to the second player. A unit can change its stance card once per activation for free at any time other than when it is resolving an attack. So once you've rolled your dice, you can't then decide, oh, I'm going to change my stance. You also can't change your stance reactively when it isn't your activation. So if you're in your lesser stance for defensive tech, for example, and you get targeted with an attack, there isn't a window of opportunity to be able to change your stance card. Who knows? Some characters, again, may have that as a reactive ability. I can easily see that being something that some characters would have. But right now in the game, that isn't there. It's not part of the rules. And again, it will be one of those exceptions through a reactive ability that a character does have. So let's take a look then at the steps of resolving a combat tree. So we've got Lord Maul's Dark Rage here. So when we're resolving a combat tree, it's going to be one of the final parts of the attack sequence. And again, we're going to go into the next video. We'll do a complete end-to-end example of how attacks work. But we just wanted to throw it in here as well so you had an idea of how this was going to be. So you always start at one of your unit's orange starting options. Lord Maul here only has the one, which is the highlighted one here, but that's where we always start, and these are always going to be on the left-hand side of the combat tree. You can move along any path that is to the right, above, or below the previous option. So if we see here, if we've got a success, and we want to move forward to that second option there along that middle path. So you can then continue to choose options equaling to your total successes. So if we had 3 successes, we will be able to move along 3 spaces on this combat tree, resolving each one in turn. When a path has multiple options, you can only choose one path to move along. So let's say in this example that we actually had 4 successes with Lord Maul. So if we chose to go down the middle, that bottom path would then be cut off from us. We can't track back and we can't go down that bottom path. And then lastly, you can never choose an option to the left even if you have successes remaining. So let's say that we had 6 successes on Lord Maul's and we got all the way to the very end using 5 of our successes. We couldn't then use that last success to double back on ourselves and go take another option on a different branch of that tree. So really, really important when we come to combat tree resolution. Again, we're going to go into a deeper dive on this and we'll show you a real life example in the next video, episode 9, where we will do a full attack from beginning to end to make it really, really easy for you guys to understand. But that is going to be it, guys, for we're calling it stances, combat trees, and conditions. There we go. I just want to remind you guys that we are giving away a Star Wars Shatterpoint core box. So for this one, let me know what you guys think about the combat tree. I think it's a very, very interesting and for me, unique way of being able to do combat. It's very different to other games that I've played. And the couple of games that I've managed to have of Shatterpoint so far, it's been really, really cool. I love the way that you have to make the different options, and sometimes it works out great. Sometimes it's not particularly good whatsoever, but it does feel, at least to me, really represent those back and forth battles that we see in the Star Wars universe. So to be with a chance of winning that core box, you need to do 3 things. You need to make sure that you're subscribed, you need to make sure that you leave a like on this video, and then you need to answer that question down in the comment section below. What do you guys think of the combat tree? We are going to be doing the draw tomorrow on the 4th of May. We'll be picking a video at random from our Shatterpoint collection, and then from there we'll be picking a comment at random. So if you haven't done already, go and check out those other videos. Go see what the question is on those videos. Make sure you leave them a like, and also then answer that question down in the comment section. And again, I'll be picking one lucky winner to win a Star Wars Shatterpoint core box. Guys, if you do want to support the channel even further, we do have our Patreon up and running, where from as little as £1 a month, you can support the channel and help us continue to make this content for you guys. You seem to have been really enjoying these beginner's guide, and even if only a handful of you find these useful, and it means that you're able to get into the game much easier, I feel like that is my job done. If you do want to carry on the discussion around Star Wars Shatterpoint, or indeed any of the other games that we have or we follow and cover on the channel even, and then go check out our Discord. There'll be a link down in the description below. And a final shout out to the guys at loyalist Games, the brand new sponsor of the channel. There'll be a link down in the description below. And if you are based in the UK and you're looking for somewhere to make all your Shatterpoint or MCP or indeed any other hobbying orders, go down and check that out. And there's a little £5 off your first order there if you qualify for it. I think it's like a £50 order or something like that. And lastly, and as always guys, it leaves me with just enough time to say stay well, keep safe, and until next time, may the Force be with you.